San Joaquin Valley Regional Rail Authority meeting on July 14th at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. If we can please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Yes.
I pledge allegiance
Allegiance
to
to the flag
of
of
the
the United States of America
and to
and
the
to the republic for which it stands,
One nation,
nation, under God,
indivisible,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. And at this time, I would like to please have a roll call of members.
Director Akinjo,
Yes, ma'am, I'm here.
okay. Director Cantu, Harbert, Hernandez,
Present.
Hudson, Kick,
Here.
King Tingle,
Here.
McPartland, Neram,
Present.
Rickman,
Here.
Stepper,
Here.
Vargas, Warner,
Here.
Wright,
Here.
Zuba.
Here.
Do we have Hudson? Harbert? Okay,
I believe
you have
Halbert, Halbert is trying to, Halbert's in the waiting room.
huh. Oh, there we go. Director Harbert?
Hello, I'm here.
Good. Okay, you have a
Thank you.
quorum.
Okay, thank you. So we will move on to item number 3, which is public comment. Members of the public may address the board on any issues not listed on the agenda that are within the purview of the authority. Comments and matters that are listed on the agenda may be made at the time of the board is considering each item. And we have a time limit for that. Do we have any members of the public that would like to speak during public comments?
I have one person with a hand up right now, Roland. Please state your full name.
Good afternoon. This is Roland Treblan. I just wanted to give you a quick thank you for the closed captioning in the transcript. Thank you.
Thank you, Roland. Moving along, if we have no more public comments, we will move along to item number 4, which is our consent calendar. Would any of the committee members like to pull anything from the consent? Not seeing anyone's hands up, I will go ahead and ask for a motion for the consent calendar.
Move the consent agenda.
I heard Karen Stepper first.
I'll second it.
Who's the second? Near, okay.
Right will second.
Was that right?
Yes.
Okay.
If we may please have a roll call. Candace?
Akinjo,
Yes, ma'am.
Cantu, it's not here. Harbert,
Aye.
Hernandez,
Aye.
Kick,
Aye.
King Tingle.
aye,
I see we have McPartland,
Aye.
Neram,
Aye.
Rickman,
Yes.
Stepper,
Yes.
Warner,
Yes.
Wright,
Yes.
Zuba.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. And item number 5 is the executive director's report. At this time, I will hand over the microphone to Michael Tree.
All right, you hear me okay, Chair?
Mhm.
Great. Hey, well, listen, good afternoon to everybody, and hope your summer's going well. I do have maybe 5 or 6 items just to cruise through quickly in regard to just work that's ongoing behind the scenes. I think you'll find that this meeting's a pretty light meeting, and we have anticipated, I think when we set the board calendar, canceling August, and I think we're still on track for that. And then September will be a pretty robust meeting. So I'll just kind of tee up my comments with the knowledge that September will be robust. I do want to acknowledge just right off the bat, SB 548, which is your legislation regarding Valley Link and your rail authority. It continues to move along nicely in Sacramento. On June 21st, it was approved unanimously by the Assembly Transportation Committee. So its next stop, which could happen as early as tomorrow, although I haven't received indication that it will, it most likely will happen in August when the legislature comes back from their break. The next step would be that the Assembly and the full Assembly will consider that bill. So not anticipating any issues. And then from the Assembly floor, it'll go to the governor for signature, and would be happy to chat more about that if you have questions. Over the last 30 days since we last met, staff worked on and submitted a grant to the FTA in regard to transit-oriented development, really with an eye of helping a net zero scenario take place around the stations within the Valley Link project. And we also submitted, most recently on Monday, a grant to the DOT. It's called the RAISE Grant Program. Many of you may be familiar with that program, but we submitted an application for funding to continue to look at a joint corridor with the ACE system, in particular in the Altamont and also in the San Joaquin County, which would increase the speed of the Valley Link train. So we'll follow those grants. Hopefully we're successful with them. Again, I can share more information if you have questions. I do want to update you just really briefly. A lot of you have had interest, as well as the public has had interest in that shared autonomous vehicle project that LAFTA is working on, which is a first last mile solution into the Dublin, Pleasant, and BART station, which obviously would be a station for the Valley Link project. That project's moving along nicely into phase 2. And additionally, we have a phase 3 identified, but the vehicle will have travel speeds in phase 2 of 25 up to 25 miles per hour. So it'll function in the street at street speed in mixed traffic. And it'll also go into revenue service between a business park and some housing in the BART station in the near future. So just to keep you apprised of that, that kind of fits in nicely with your sustainability blueprint that we've used as a pattern when we apply for grants. That has nice traction with policymakers, both at the state level and the federal level. We have a lot of planning going on at the regional and the mega regional level. September will include a strategic agenda, which will set up discussions on these planning opportunities and planning efforts that are taking place. I'll just give you a little taste of what's happening in the mega region that will directly affect the Valley Link project. You've got both of the regional transportation plans, the Bay Area and the San Joaquin County RTPs that are being updated. You have a project called Link 21, which I think is starting to get on your radars, which is the second Transbay 2 crossing. And that project's really being teed up as a project that is needed so that when Valley Link brings in what's estimated at 33,000 rides a day and BART receives them, there's capacity in the tube to get the riders into the San Francisco area. So more and more we're being discussed with Link 21, so we'll brief you on that. There's also what's called the Bayfair Connector. That's a project that has not been discussed much at the board level, but directly affects the Valley Link project and how folks travel from Valley Link to the BART system to the South Bay or into the Oakland, San Francisco area. It's a BART project that was funded by Measure BB. So we'll talk a little bit about that in September. You've also got MTC working on their mega regional policy for mega projects. So that one directly affects Valley Link. And you've got San Joaquin COG working on a managed lane project on the 205. And most of you are starting to become aware of that project and the implications it might have on the Valley Link project. So that's just a taste of what's going on. And I think in September, we're really going to set an agenda with you to basically have those strategic discussions. Just a couple of other things that I think would be worthy of talking about. We continue to work behind the scenes with suppliers on hydrogen technology for the Valley Link trains. You'll receive a report on that in September. We're basically looking at the fuel and how you get hydrogen and get it at a cost that makes it a good match for the Valley Link project. We think we're getting close. And then also the hydrogen trains, how they're coming along in their development, and what we foresee with the Valley Link project in regard to the trains themselves. So we'll update you on that. Just wanted to let you know we continue to work, behind the scenes on that project. And then finally, we're making great progress. This was the first month that your new Deputy Executive Director, Kevin Sheridan, was on board, and really happy to have him on board. We're doing a lot of work in regard to what NEPA will look like, your federal environmental clearance process on this project, as well as your project approval and environmental documentation phase with Caltrans. We've kind of referred to that as your PAED phase, your approval phase for Caltrans for work in the 580. And I will tell you, Kevin's opened up a wealth of connections with both Caltrans and also with ACTC. We've had a lot of work with ACTC over the last month in regard to what those managed lanes will look like during construction and upon finishing construction. And that collaboration, I mean, I can just foresee that you're going to have a considerable cost savings to what we had originally projected in regard to the cost on the 580. So, you know, Kevin is leading the team, and Rick Rattray, you're well familiar with, has been part of that effort, and things are going really, really well. And then also, you know, we have an eye on getting on to 30% design. So with that said, I think I just had one other comment that I think is really relevant, and then I'll be quiet and look for any questions you might have. But there's considerable discussion that's already beginning to surface from multiple groups, probably, you know, up to 5 to 7 groups already, not including policymaker, individual interests. But the talk is on in regard to a 9-county measure that could go on the ballot in 2024. And I think you'll see that by the 1st of January of 2022, that there's some real there's some decision making that's already starting to take place as early as January, and really a momentum being set. So I just wanted to make sure it's on everybody's radar screen that even as we recover from the pandemic, discussions are already being held about that measure. And I will remind you, it's part of your funding plan and a critical component for the success of Valley Link. That's where your O&M will come from, and also capital dollars to plug holes in your budget where you might be short from state and federal money. So with that, I'll call it a day in regard to the executive director's report, but I'd be happy to take any questions you might have or comments.
Thank you, Michael. Any questions from the board? Supervisor Howard.
Michael, I'm hearing more and more discussion about hydrogen from the various groups and agencies that I sit on. And I'm wondering, is there a coordinated effort or coordination of discussion? This is a situation where, you know, we may need a critical mass to even get off the ground with anything. And it's kind of like, if everybody figures out what they need, we'll never get to the critical mass. But if everybody got together and said, this is how much I need, how much I need, how much I need, then perhaps we can, as a group, get there. And I see Valley Link as perhaps a big user of hydrogen. and need of hydrogen. The local buses are being pushed to evaluate hydrogen. I don't know if transportation is enough, if that sector is enough to get hydrogen off the ground, so to speak, but are there other sectors, factories that may rely on hydrogen or some other need for hydrogen? And are we putting it all together so that we could go to the people that do hydrogen and get them to invest in our area? Because I don't think we're going to build our own hydrogen filling stations. We're going to need the private sector to do that. So what's the coordination among the different public agencies, and what's the dialogue with the private suppliers in order to either keep the discussion of hydrogen going or not?
Yeah, great questions. You know, there's a two-pronged approach going on out there, both locally and at the state level. There are discussions on getting folks together for purchasing power. Mayor Warner, for example, has led discussions amongst the transit agencies in the Tri-Valley area to come together to talk about the bus side of hydrogen. And the key issue, right, is the fuel prices. If you can get hydrogen fuel prices down into a range that's acceptable, then it seems like most of the other obstacles are pretty minor in comparison. But in addition to the efforts at the local level, which include discussions by staff with hydrogen fuel suppliers like First Element Fuel, that's setting up a significant distribution center in the city of Livermore to feed Bay Area needs for hydrogen. You know, we've been having both individual discussions with First Element Fuel, but also collectively, CalSTA is really taking a lead on trying to get all of the train operators and bus operators who envision hydrogen as their zero emission path. They're getting them together as part of a consortia, if you will, to basically all buy off the same contract and hence get the pricing where it needs to be. So there's multiple approaches to this going on simultaneously. And, you know, we're really hopeful that CalSTA, as they collectively get everybody onto the same purchasing contract, if that's the desire of this board, for example, can get the pricing down to where that is, you know, it's viable.
Thank you.
Mayor Warner.
I was going to add to that, Supervisor Howard. We're on some of the similar boards, and we had the ACTC and what they're trying to do in the Port of Oakland. We've got the 680 corridor buses. We've got Gillig. We're trying to get their AC Transit. And Michael, I guess the question that Supervisor Howard asked is who's on point? And you mentioned a lot of efforts going on. Now, when we were trying to get the earmark from Swalwell, I believe amongst all of the various players, ACTC was kind of on point. But I do believe that what Supervisor Howard is saying is we need to collectively get together now that we're past the earmark request and pick who's on point. So do you have a suggestion for that?
I would say that ACTC or MTC would be the likes, but that really is related to transportation. I don't know that they do much with the port. So maybe a combination of, I mean, the port could be huge. So maybe it's a couple of different on points, maybe with a leader and a co-lead.
Well, that's always good, but having one leader, you can be sure you're going in one direction. So I think the question is, you know, Michael's got a couple of roles, one here and then one on LAVTA. And LAVTA is interested, as I forgot to mention that, in the hydrogen possibility. So is it possible, Michael, for you to work with Supervisor Howard and maybe choose who's on point? I mean, get one as some leaders got to be more leading than the others. I mean, right? Yeah. We want to be able to point the finger at somebody and say, are you making it happen or not? So is that acceptable to you guys to
Yep.
go pick some? But you're absolutely right, Supervisor Howard. We need a coordinated effort. There are lots of agencies that could fund this, and there are lots of agencies that need it. But we need that overall coordination. And I would suggest, Michael, that we kind of have this as an agenda item as to, let's see our progress toward. So so if you could have the, let us make this an action item to get somebody on point.
Got it.
Thank you. Director Stepper, you're on mute.
A couple of weeks ago, I heard this presentation on Rodeo, where Phillips 66 is becoming a diesel renewal, the project based on oils and foods and growing their own soybeans, I guess. So there must be other kinds of fuel out there. So are you saying that the two people who spoke, Bob and I forget who the first one was, is the only other kind that we have to be concerned with is hydrogen, or are we looking at other fuels that are now being developed?
Oh, well, let me, you mentioned it to me, but I'm certainly a proponent of hydrogen, and especially for large vehicles. I mean, for trucks, buses, trains. It's about the cleanest you can get, depending on how you generate the hydrogen. But if you do that by using electricity that's, say, sun powered to split water, you got it, right? I mean, there's absolutely, other than the hardware production, there's nothing that's going to harm the environment. So the question is, to the extent of exploring the hydrogen option, who's on point? Now, there are, of course, if we look at for Valley Link and these other things, multiple options, but at least with respect to hydrogen, because there are so many organizations that have to be coordinated, that's worth having a point. And that can coordinate with who's ever on the larger question of the fuel choice. But hydrogen's a big enough deal across so many organizations, as Supervisor Howard pointed. We got to have some focus.
Okay, no, I understand what you just said then. There may be other things come down the pike eventually and as things are explored, but this one is a good alternative and we don't want to be behind the eight ball. Thank you.
Yeah, and it covers so many options with our buses, the trucks at the port, the trains, that it's potentially a key to all of our different organizations' climate action plans. So it's a big deal that needs to be fully understood. And I would also say that to some extent, the national labs here in Livermore are also interested in understanding and helping on this.
Thank you.
So.
Thank you, directors, and thank you, Bob. And we will definitely have Michael Tree put something in the future agenda with regards to this item. It looks like there's so many moving parts and, you know, our staff is going to be very busy this summer. So I'm looking forward to having that fall meeting discussion and the strategic discussion, key points that we will be, you know, the project issues that we will be meeting during the fall. So we will go ahead and move on to item number 6. The discussion here is the executive director to execute.
Melissa?
Yes.
I have Paul Akinjo with a hand up, and I have 2 attendees waiting to speak on that item.
We do not normally take public comment during the executive director's comments. So we will go ahead and move on to item number 6, which is the executive director to execute cooperative agreement amendment number 1 with Caltrans.
Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon, Board. I'll be taking this, Board members, I'll be taking this item. So yes, staff is requesting to authorize the Executive Director to enter into execute a cooperative agreement amendment number 1 with Caltrans. The original agreement, which was approved by the Board in 2019, was for $200,000 over the course of the last year and a half. The Caltrans has been working diligently on completing the project study report, project development support, which is also known as project initiation document, and is 2 weeks ago alerted me that they were running short on funds and needed approximately $100,000 more to complete the project initiation document. we're very close to completing the document. I would anticipate by October that the project study report will be complete. And in that also contains the cooperative agreement for us to continue on with our environmental studies as we move forward with the project. And the total budget amount would be revised to 300,000. And I'm happy to take any questions by the board for this item.
Any questions from the board? And I wanted to actually go back and give, I didn't know that Director Paul Akinjo wanted to speak with regards or had a question with Michael Tree.
Madam Chair, I think it's okay. We are in exploration stage, right? Because I know there are some safety concerns with the hydrogen. So I was trying to ask Director Warner exactly his experience and knowledge concerning the use of hydrogen in all these areas that he meant. That was all. But if we are going to be discussing this in detail, maybe we can move on. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Paul. I appreciate you being patient with me. So I will bring it back to our item and seeing any hands from our directors. I will ask if there's any public comment.
I have one person with a hand up. It's Roland.
I think Director Tingle was trying to unmute herself.
Oh, yes. To the request for an additional $100,000, is that the initial $200,000? Was that what was at that time considered enough to finish out that phase of the inquiry of the project? Or I guess to simply put, is this about a $100,000 requested for? It's an overrun, or just more funding that's needed in order to finish?
Thank you for the question, Director. I think it's more of what's required to finish. When Caltrans gives an estimate for a project initiation document, they do their best to project what information they'll be examining and how much information is required to approve that report. And when they get to a point where they're out of funds, they typically stop work or alert an agency that additional funds are needed to complete the task. Interestingly, as I've dived into this particular project initiation document, most of these only require a cooperative agreement for the next phase. In this case, Caltrans has went ahead and drafted the cooperative agreement to include the environmental, the design, and the right-of-way phase. So it's a much better benefit to us, to the board, and for the project, as we won't have to do those agreements later. They will already be in place and allow us to continue moving at an expedited rate. So the $100,000 is additional to complete a much broader cooperative agreement for this particular document.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
And then Kevin, I do have a question just quickly. And then what is the schedule for the completion for the PSR and the PDS?
So some of it's dependent on staff to complete our work as far as getting the financial plan together. We have to have a financial plan that shows how the next phases of work will be funded. So we anticipate completing that by September. And then we will furnish that information to Caltrans, and they will submit it to their Sacramento or headquarters for approval. So in talking to the Caltrans project manager, I think October is a realistic time to get back the completed project initiation document and the cooperative agreement for the next phase of work.
Okay, great. And then I will ask if there's any members of the public.
Okay, yes, I have one person with a hand up. Roland.
Hi, Roland.
Madam Chair, with all due respect, I would like to read to you Government Code Section 54954.3, first sentence, which reads as follows. Every agenda for regular meetings shall provide an opportunity for members of the public to directly address the legislative body on any item of interest to the public before or during the legislative body's consideration of the item. I have two comments on the previous item. One was on link 21, the other one was on hydrogen. And I had a question for Mr. Michael Tree through the chair. Thank you. Can I speak to those now?
So I would like our executive director to, let's be clear, this is the first time that I'm running this meeting, and in the past, we have not received public comment for the executive director's report. So Michael Tree.
You know, Michael Connor, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think in the past, we haven't made a habit of asking if there's public comment during the executive director's report, but I'm not sure that we prohibit it either.
Right.
So probably your call.
I'd be inclined to let him speak. Just, we don't have that long of an agenda. So we've got 3 minutes.
Thank you for the clarification. Go ahead, Roland.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I appreciate it. On link 21, I submitted a proposal for the alignment. I believe the BOT directors were copied, so Director Mark Parton must have seen this, but I will forward it to you for your consideration. On Friday at 11 o'clock, there is an item at the DTX, the Downtown Extension Executive Committee, ESC for short, that will be consider a recommended scope of work to study the actual capacity of the alignment, which was designed for 8 Caltrains, 4 high-speed trains, and then an additional 18 combination of BOT and Capital Corridor trains using standard gauge. On the hydrogen, I personally believe that Carl Gardino, who now works for Bloom Energy, is behind this conversation that is going all over the place. I would respectfully put it to you that everybody else is looking at battery for energy storage, because they're also basically looking, they know they have the electrical infrastructure to recharge the batteries, and there is no infrastructure for hydrogen right now. Now, one thing you have to understand, and Elon Musk has been very vocal about this, is hydrogen is an extremely inefficient form of energy storage, because you have got to use vast amounts of electrical power to compress the hydrogen so that it can be stored in liquid form. And that basically is what is the case. So anyway, you can go on YouTube and look up Elon Musk and hydrogen, and he refers to fuel cells as full, spelled F-O-L-L cells. In closing, I do have a question through the chair for Mr. Tree. Is whether LAFTA's current autonomous shuttle supplier is Transdev, Easy Mile, or somebody else? Thank you.
Thank you, Roland. So we will go ahead and bring it back to the board to see if there's any other comments with regards to item 6.
Just real quickly, Chair, I just wanted to respond to Roland. The answer is that Transdev is the current provider or the current contracted operator on the SAV project for LAFTA.
And I do have one other member of the public with a hand raised.
Sure. It looks like Mr. Vaughn.
That's correct. Go ahead.
Yes, I want to make sure everybody's talking when they say hydrogen, they mean green hydrogen that's produced from renewable sources. There's a gray hydrogen that the oil companies are using because they reformat steamed natural gas, which is just even dirtier than diesel. So if you're going to go to hydrogen, you need to go to green hydrogen. Otherwise, you might as well be using diesel. I'm sure that's what Michael had in mind. Also, counter to what the previous speaker said about hydrogen, and address one of the questions the board members asked. Transportation, at least heavy duty transportation, is one of the uses of hydrogen. The main uses are something much bigger and much more important. The decarbonization of cement, steel, and fertilizers is a much higher priority. But the long-term priority for hydrogen going into the future is it is the only way to store long-term energy that you will need to decarbonize the rest of the world, the rest of the stuff in the United States or wherever. There's been experiments by the Norwegians who have massive wind and massive stored pump storage for dams and stuff, that if you are going to decarbonize the world, you need a long-term storage that can save power for seasons, generate it in the summer and use it in the winter type of thing. Hydrogen is the only thing that can do that. There is no other option that anybody knows of or is even pretending to know of other than pump storage. And for pump storage, you need mountains and dams, and not everywhere in the world has mountains and dams. That said, the Germans and the Norwegians and those guys are building massive gigawatt wind operations in the North Sea only to produce hydrogen. That's what we're going to have to do here. You might coordinate with the windmill people that are going to be in Morro Bay and Humboldt. Both GE and Siemens have electrolyzers they can attach to the windmills to generate green hydrogen. Also, it's something we don't do much in the United States. You have floating hydrogen, floating solar. You could use that on the bay. You could use it in places like Suisun Bay. You could use it on the water storage places to prevent or reduce evaporation, which is important when we don't have very much water. And you can produce the hydrogen at that point. But we're going to need massive amounts, and it's used for all sorts of things. Heavy duty transportation is the middle. It's not the most important. But since you need massive amounts of it, you might as well use it. Green hydrogen, though. Thank you.
Thank you, Vaughn. And I will bring it back to the board. Do we have any panelists that have any? Oh, Mayor Warner.
I just wanted to say this, it's clear that there's different points of view on this. And what we need is somebody on point to understand what the option is and to whether it makes sense in what capacity. I don't think any decision has been made, but I think what we've just heard, it's something that needs to be explored and understood.
Thank you, Mayor Warner. And at this time, I don't see any other attendees or any board of directors raising their hand. So I will bring it back for an approval of item number 6.
I'll make the motion for approval.
I'll second.
Second, Halbert.
We have a first and a second. Candace, please take roll.
Akinjo,
Yes, ma'am.
Hobart,
Aye.
Hernandez,
Aye.
Hudson, Kit,
Aye.
King Tingle,
Aye.
McPartland,
Aye.
Neeram,
Aye.
Rickman,
Yes.
Stepper,
Yes.
Vargas,
Yes.
Warner,
Yes.
Wright,
Yes.
Zuber.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. And as we can all see, our Chair Vargas is back on with us. So I will go ahead and pass the baton here and have her go ahead and take over the rest of the agenda.
7.
Thank you, Vice Chair. I appreciate you covering, and I apologize to the group for being late. Has a work conflict in another meetings, but I'm glad that you guys are rolling through it and quite fast. So the next item agenda is to approve, it's number 6, right?
7. 6.
We're in item 7.
Number 7.
Number 7, to approve employment agreement with Bill O'Harris, Rail Engineer and Construction Project Management. It's an action item. Michael, would you like to brief us, please?
Yeah, you bet. So at your last board meeting, you approved your first employment agreement as a rail authority with your Deputy Executive Director and Program Manager, Kevin Sheridan. There were a few other critical hires that we felt would be forthcoming for the rail authority that would add capacity to the agency and also would allow it to operate more economically. These are two positions that we envisioned would be full-time moving forward. And the first employment agreement, which is item number 7, is with Bill O'Hare. Bill is he's been serving for more than a year as your engineer over civil work. First, he was serving through a seconded arrangement with BART, and then upon retiring from BART, had become a consultant to stay on project. So this is a critical position within the agency. As I said, it's critical in building capacity for the agency so that other agencies such as the FTA gain a confidence level with the agency in regard to expertise and being able to manage a project of this size. We bring to you an employment agreement for Bill O'Hare. We did not advertise this position since he's currently serving in this position, just as I said, as a seconded BART employee, and then most recently as a consultant. We did do, however, salary comparisons as we came up with the salary range and then identified the agreed upon salary that we would pay Bill O'Hare. As seen in your staff report in regard to compensation, it's a 2-year contract. The salary would be $195,000 per year. It would include a cafeteria plan for his benefits, to which the agency would deposit $22,000 per year. And the contract will also deposit 15% of his annual salary into a 401A for retirement purposes. Finally, in regard to PTO or paid time off, 4 weeks would be within this employment agreement, as well as 8 hours per month accrued for sick leave. And so the recommendation is that you authorize the executive director to execute an employment agreement with Bill O'Hare as the rail authority's engineering and construction manager in a form that's approved by legal counsel.
I say that to the board members that the right sizing of an agency is key. And I know that in the last 30 days, we're hiring our second employee. And I am pleased that Bill will be joining us, hopefully with the blessing of the board, and creating a lean and agile organization on moving us forward and getting us ready for the construction of our project. So I'll leave it open for Q&A. But before I do that, I'm going to open the item for public discussion. Is anybody, Candace, that wishes to speak?
I don't have any members of the public with a hand raised.
Perfect. We'll bring it back to the board then and open it to the board members for discussion. Or a motion.
I just have a quick question. I'm assuming this is an at-will employee?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Just wanted to confirm that.
Well, I have a question. I have a hand raised too, but
Sure, Paul, go ahead.
do we have human resources that is overseeing all this hiring?
You know, certainly I took direct responsibility in the hiring, but the organization does have an HR specialist, and she is Tamara Edwards, who also serves as your CFO. But she is also the HR director and the CFO for LAFTA, so she's got experience in overseeing employment-related issues.
I don't know, Michael, if Tamara is not involved in this hiring process, overseeing, how do we protect this agency that we are really meeting the conditions that is stated out? Like this last employee, the next employee, we have to make some deposit into his account. We have to have 401A and all those things. And then the sick leave. And Those things I've seen in all over agencies that come for litigation most of the time if something happens. So that's why the HR director needs to be really be involved. I'm not questioning your power for all those things, Michael, but I think we need to cover ourselves while we are doing all this. These are not just entry-level employees. These are high-level employees that are playing important parts. They need to be protected. So is the agency too needs to be protected.
Yeah, I'd
Great.
simply add that, Paul, in addition to my involvement in it, your legal team has also been very intimately involved in these 3 hirings, as well as your HR on staff. So my apologies if I gave you the impression that it was just kind of me creating the employment agreement and negotiating the deals. It was actually a very coordinated team effort.
And not to mention that also we had Kevin too as an ED. That is another layer. So they're more than just one person, Paul. And that is a great question. And I hope that that puts everybody's mind at ease that legal is involved. We have our consultant, our HR, and of course we have Michael and Kevin looking for the best interests and letting us know if there are any issues. We do have a team. Not in-house, but consultants, and we use those resources. Anybody else?
Veronica?
Yes, David.
Yes. I apologize for coming in late, and the last thing in the world I want to do is start jumping into the middle of a conversation. I think the bigger question is, if we hire people, if we don't hire people and we don't get the results that we're looking for, and this is really a crucial time, as Michael doesn't want to hear it from me anymore about the trips to DC, et cetera. But if you've got experienced people and put them in the right place at the right time now, I'm much more apt to support it. Whereas usually I'm so darn cheap, I'm just saying, no, let's not hire anybody. But this is not a time to be doing this. I understand the question. And certainly we should be looking at it, but unfortunately, every time I turn around, this seems like normal for what we're offering. So I would say I'd support it. If I had the paperwork in front of me, because I just walked in, I'd make the motion. If you let me get away with staff recommendation, I will make the motion. But I think this is something we have to do.
I'll let you get away with that, Director Hudson.
Pardon?
I'll let you get away with that.
Thank you.
If you like to do that, yes. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
So motion made by Director Hudson.
We've been approved and seconded. Am I miss?
No,
Not correct. No.
not this one.
Okay.
And second by Director Nurin. Could we have a roll call, please?
Madam Chair.
I have Michael Conneran.
Before we start, I just want to note, I mean, at the last meeting, we did adopt a human resources policy, and that we have been putting in the employment contract. We will also have terms to address that. And we've just today delivered a employee handbook as well. So we are putting that function together. I agree with Director Hudson, though. I mean, there's talent out there. These people are sort of tried and true because they've been working for us already. And so it makes sense to get them on board. Thanks.
Thank you. Candace, continue.
Ready. Akinjo,
Yes, ma'am.
Hobbit,
Yes.
Hernandez,
Yes.
Hudson,
Yes.
Kick,
Yes.
King Tingle,
Yes.
McPartland,
Yes.
Naram,
Aye.
Rickman,
Yes.
Stepper,
Yes.
Vargas,
Yes.
Warner,
Yes.
Wright,
Yes.
Zuba.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you, Candace. Next item, again, we are in a row on our hires, and this one is very near and dear because this person has been with us since the inception of the conversation before we were an agency or GPS. So It's an action item to approve the employment agreement with Mary Ann Payne as a manager in policy, planning, and environmental. And we all know how valuable she has been through the years. I'm like I said, I'm very pleased to see her moving to our agency and being part of our staff. With that,
So moved, Halbert.
So move,
Michael.
Paul.
Nice. We're gonna have to just follow the rules, guys. But we'll have Michael do a brief staff report. We'll open for the public comment and bring it back for vote. And I have you duly noted, Supervisor Harvard. You will be the first one. Michael.
Well, hey, I think that the staff report is simple. Mary Ann's been told everything we've done. She's an expert in policy. She has a vast environmental expertise. She builds the capacity of the agency.
Yes.
And the agreement that we've had put in place, or the agreement that we're recommending, which is in your staff report, is one that will be economical for the agency.
Thank you, Michael. Candace, do we have any comments from the public?
We do not.
If we're none, then I will bring it back to our board, and I believe Supervisor Harvard is eager to make a motion, so the force is yours.
I'm ready to
Supervisor.
make it a second emotion.
Moved by Halbert, second by Akinjo.
Sounds good. Any discussions?
I know you guys are trying to move this on quickly, but I just want to say Mary Ann has been a champion through Valley Link, and you guys beat me to the punch, but it's great to have a woman also in place with regards to transportation, and she's an amazing person, and she's been here from the beginning. So there's my comment.
Well said. Well said. Here, here.
Well said. Here, here.
Pretty single, and I have a comment to make. I am so pleased with this recommendation. It just warms my heart. I think there's, she's not being added to the team. She's been here since the beginning, and she's, to me, has already been part of the team. And I think that we have really made a wise decision on this part, and welcome Mary Ann.
Love it. Haircut, Bernie. And thank you for the comment. And I will leave Director Stepper has a comment.
I'll be quick, but we're kind of on the outline of Valley Link, and Mary Ann, when she was doing all those complicated reports and environmental work, et cetera, which was outstanding, it was still available to come out and talk to people in our city, and she just did an awesome job. So thank you.
Thank you, Director Stepper. Anybody else have any comments?
Yes, I do.
Go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, Madam, I mean, jokes apart, Mary Ann has been with us, and she actually helped us to move things, forward. When we were visiting all the cities and stuff like that, Mary Ann was always there and guiding. I mean, if there's a third motion, I would say make second and third motion. But yeah,
I'm glad to hear that everybody feels the same way. We truly are very blessed to have an unbelievable team of people that are devoted, dedicated to seeing this project through. I am blessed to work with all of you, and it's an exciting time for Valley Link. With that being said, Candace, would you please take roll call?
You may honor. Akinjo?
Yes.
That's just one vote. Harvard?
Aye.
Hernandez?
Yes, and absolutely.
Hudson?
Yes.
Kick?
Yes.
King Tingle?
I say yes.
McPartland?
Absolutely.
Neerum?
Yes.
Rickman?
Yes.
Stepper?
Yes.
Vargas?
Absolutely, yes. Yes.
Warner?
Yes.
Wright?
Yes.
Suba?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Perfect. Director's discussion. Does anybody has any items that would like to be considered for the agenda or comments to share with the rest of the directors? Are you sure? Nobody? Not
No,
even Rick?
We have
several
Alice.
of us.
Who put hands
have-
up?
Oh,
put the
there,
hands
I
up.
don't see him. Look at that. Okay, Director Hudson, you go first.
I'll briefly, and I think maybe all of us have had an interesting conversation with the staff member from Padilla's office, and they're getting around and making the touching bases, so to speak. I think it is imperative that when you list your priorities, that one or two had better be Valley Link. I immediately put them in touch with the Innovate 680 and I told them along the same lines, you know, check in with Swalwell. You'll find out in the Valley, that's what we think about. So if you haven't been touched by it yet, make sure, take the opportunity. I'm getting a little concerned on a regional level when maybe I just read one line and they're going, well, we'll push Valley Link back to 2035. And if it goes to 2035, it's 45, and that just can't happen. And so to me, any chance you get, somebody starts to get out of line with what our line is, you got to put your foot down and not just be nice. Let them know this is the real deal. We're ready to go right now, and we're not waiting.
Here to that. Absolutely. Director Warner.
Oh, I just wanted to ask if, Director King Joe's question about are we adequately protected through our HR, does that perhaps need some documentation so that we all are clear on it? It was sort of an ad hoc response, but perhaps that could be documented so we don't need to be concerned.
Great point. Michael?
We do have our policy, which we adopted last month, that contains a lot of our employment policies, and we're putting that in place with an employee handbook that spells it out even more clearly. So,
well, I think the question was not just the policies
Right.
and the handbook, et cetera, but who's on point to actually assure compliance. I think that was the question.
Mm.
I think Michael's ultimately responsible. We're working with him to put together the employee benefit packages. We're keeping it pretty simple we don't need to offer health insurance, given.
No. I don't think the question was about the rules and the procedures, but it's who are the humans involved in assuring compliance?
Well, I would say legal staff, Tamara, in terms of the accounting and payroll and those.
Right. What we're
Michael
saying is
ultimately in terms of supervision of their efforts.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, if I heard it right, the kind of answer we're looking for is more definitive, rather than you saying, I would say. It needs to be written down. That's all I'm saying. I think that I'm just trying to channel what I heard Director Kinjo say, but I find it, you need both the policies and you need to know who is accountable.
Duly noted.
Okay.
We will bring it back.
We can get you a list of responsibilities. I think that's what you're looking for.
Thank you, Michael. Director Akincho, Paul. Your hands up.
Yes, my hands up. Thank you, Director Warner, for emphasizing those issues. It's nothing. We love the selections, but the agency need to be protected, and that is the key thing. Are we protected? We don't want to lose more money than we don't have anyway. But if we go by what Director Warner is saying, and we become more detailed and fine-tune our selection process, and there's documentation, then we can feel a little bit at peace at that point.
I'll bring that documentation back, but rest assured, the hiring and the firing of every employee in this agency rests with the executive director. And I utilize the legal team and the HR team to make sure that the steps I'm taking are appropriate.
We know it. We know it. We'll bring it back and make it official so everybody's concerns are being addressed. We will have an agenda item coming soon. So duly noted to both directors' point.
Would-
We'll have further discussion.
Madam Chair, I was just commenting on Director Warner's comments, but the real other side of the story is the agenda that is coming up regarding the hydrogen measures that we might have to put in and discuss. I hope that based on the way Valley Link was established and our technical presentation, that whoever is on point is coming up with some good illustration and justification for the hydrogen. And now we had that as a green one, and there's just regular hydrogen, that's a green hydrogen. We want something that really ready to explain all these conditions and differences during the next presentation. That's all.
Thank you, Director Akincho. I'll move on to Director Kick.
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up a little bit on what Michael Tree had mentioned in his executive director's report. It's very related to some outreach I've got from some community members who are very pro-transit and trying to make sure that it happens and we have money to pay for it. So I was hoping that staff could bring back some recommendations to see, how we can best support that 2024 potential measure, be it participating in adding signatures to some letters that are already going to the MTC, et cetera. So if you can bring that back to us and let us know what you think the best ways to support a measure on the ballot, which we know is really important to our funding, that would be helpful.
Sounds good. Thank you, Director Kick. I see no other hands, so I want to share with you guys that we will not have a meeting in August. We will have our summer break, and we will have our next meeting scheduled for September 8th, and location to be determined. So hopefully we can get all together again, but it's not a sure thing yet. So we'll figure it out and we'll update the group. But I meant today's a very good meeting, and again, I love that every meeting is an action-packed item and is full participation of the board. And I thank you all for being very engaged on this wonderful project. That it seems that we're moving forward every day, thanks to the help of our very talented staff. With that said, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
What if we don't want to adjourn? No.
So moved.
Before we go.
Dave, I was just saying before you got on that Hudson must not be here. Otherwise, we would have heard from him already.
Right?
As soon as he came on, the meeting got longer.
Oh, gee,
I was gonna say that, but because of that, and he did not mention it, I wanna make sure that, hey, we can all get together sooner. I hear that somebody's having a chili cook-off and barbecue. So maybe we can all gather there.
We can re-adjourn on July 30th.
I would rather re-adjourn behind me. I mean, if we've got the travel expenses.
Oh, geez.
Troublemaker. You know we cannot do that. But
I'm notorious at APTA and ALMA for trying to get conferences in Honolulu. The only one that went was the mayor's conference when I wasn't the mayor. Sheer genius. I wonder if I can get them to go back. Oh, well.
Oh, my God.
You got to vote? Right. Aye. For the
adjourn. Thank you,
Bye,
everybody.
guys.
Have a nice summer break. Take care.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.